All right. Ready? Okay. So this is my new series, Training the Trainer. I have my very first and most specialist guest.
My name is Ashton Wells, and I have a small training business in Montgomery, Alabama, Five Freckle K9. That's where I show my shirt, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is all about repping your brand.
We did not plan the teal.
No, it was a teal day. We're trying to match the weather out here. We're freezing. So here we are at First Avenue Park in Noonan, in the middle of Montgomery and Dallas, Georgia. Not totally the middle.
Quite, but
yeah. So we made a trek. How long have you been training?
Officially, as like my main career, probably about, I think it's been almost 8 years.
Okay.
I've worked with dogs since I was 16.
And then, tell us a little bit about, how did you get into the dog training business?
Well, I come from a family of dog lovers. So I've always had dogs in my life. And then in high school, I volunteered at the Humane Society and worked at a doggy daycare boarding facility. And so that's where I started to learn a lot about how dogs interact with each other, and didn't do anything official. And then I went away to school, studied English, did that whole thing, got my master's in English, started teaching, but every summer, every holiday, I would go back and work with the dogs, both for extra money and because that's where I'd love to be. And then in 2013, I believe, so a little over 7 years ago, I got my first official training.
Is that 7 years ago?
Isn't that crazy?
That's not 7 years ago.
2013 was my first.
Super weird.
Yeah. So that was my first. It was boarding, obedience, and all the sports as well. And that's where I really fell in love and shifted gears from teaching English 18-year-olds to teaching dogs and their humans.
Yeah. So that's kind of we'll just juxtapose a little bit. But what is similar and what is different about teaching English 18-year-olds and your clients and dogs?
For sure. That's a really good question. So similarities between teaching 18-year-olds and dogs, communication is very, very important. So not only how are you communicating what you want from your student or your canine, but also are you able to read their communication? Are you able to read how they're communicating their needs and their wants, and building that relationship and that communication is very important. And I would also say patience is
read some of your students' requests.
Yes.
I can definitely see patience.
The difference is I enjoy working with dogs better. It's, the dogs are more, it sounds silly, but the dogs are more willing to work with you. They have fewer individualistic goals, I guess, and really want to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
Whereas, students are much more like, what am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
Which, has its
It's like
positive
training
benefits.
like a bull terrier or
Yes,
something.
yes. And there are dogs like that. We both have one, right?
Yes.
What do I want out of this?
That would be Slice.
Yes.
And talking about dogs, what kind of dogs? How many? Tell us about your pups.
Yeah. So my heart dog is Junebug. She is an Australian Shepherd boxer mix. We think, as best as we know. She actually is the dog that got me into what I'm doing now. So she literally, this dog changed the course of my life.
What would you say that was specifically about her? For me it was killing it and him being awful and having to learn. So what was it about June that did that for
I
you?
think she was just more intelligent and more dog than any of the previous dogs I had growing up. She was also my first dog that was mine, not a family dog.
Yeah,
she was solely my responsibility, but she was also, she's incredibly smart and she's very emotionally intelligent. And so, growing up with labs, she's a herding breed mix. She just needed more than I've ever given another dog. And so I started looking for avenues for her to release that energy and that intelligence and give her that. And so that's where I came into more of the training side versus just, I want to have fun with my dog. Now it's, I need to give my dog something enriching to do.
Yeah.
And then there's Kona.
Kona May.
Kona May, little Kona bean. She is a Catahoula Border Collie mix. And she's, if June was more dog than I had ever had, then Kona was.
Kona is impressive.
She's an impressive specimen. And she actually belonged to a former client where we were training together, and the client needed a dog that she could come home from work, take for a mile walk, and then cuddle with the couch, and that is not Kona.
No, Kona does the weave poles so fast they're in her way.
Just like bend over. She's intense, and for a dog to do agility with, a sports dog, and I found it.
You got it.
And I always say June is a dog that made me a trainer. Kona is a dog that made me a better, more patient trainer. Because I really had to find a way to connect with Kona. Because you remember when she was a puppy, she didn't want anything to do with humans. Like,
She talked back.
Oh, she still does that a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Kona, I could tell Kona liked me, and she relied on me, and I provided for her, but she didn't connect with me emotionally the same way. And so I had to work to build that relationship with her in a way that I'd never had to before. As far as the communication aspect, that really opened my eyes to, I need to find what motivates her to connect with me, as opposed to obedience. You have to do what I say.
That's very hard for us, for me especially, is getting out of obedience.
Yes.
That obedience mind and letting a dog work and becoming creative to motivate them.
And they want to work for you.
Yeah, because if there's certain dogs you put too much pressure on them or it's just not appealing, then they're going,
yep,
I ain't doing it.
And Ranga, my Kona, if you just expected them to obey, they would toss you the bird and then be like, Kona was like not even maybe 4 months old. She would be in a place and she would put that one paw like, I'm technically in my place, but and it was that stare, and I'd go and she'd come make me.
She was, I remember training with her. Favorite thing that you ever said, and I've taken it to heart, is I wanted a sports dog, I wanted a working dog, but I didn't realize that you have to live with a sports dog and a working dog and have them in your house.
And it's a perfect balance, because drive is drive. And you probably know this from your dogs. Like, you can diminish it by putting too many boundaries and things, but really that's more of an instinct. And you can set up situations where you can build it, but you have to live with them in your house. And so it's awesome if you could have a dog that's winning all these ribbons, but if you can't live with them in between competitions, like, what's the point? And my dogs are part of my family.
Right. You only have 2, so you want them in the house with you.
The winning of ribbons and everything is fun, and it's a worthy goal, but for me personally, I'd rather have a dog that I can live with and enjoy.
Right. So what is your favorite sport or training to do?
I'm thinking about what my absolute favorite is. If I had to choose one, like, overall enjoyment, it was probably dock diving. My girls love the water. It's a very, like, laid back sport. It's still competitive, and it still kind of feeds that desire to compete, but it's not like over the top competitive, cutthroat. So I really enjoy that. As far as training methodologies go, or like watching your dog learn new skills and figure out puzzles, I really enjoy nosework. I think it does the best job of like challenging them mentally. I love watching them work those puzzles and be successful.
Nosework, I think you learn a lot about your dog. As far as watching them work, but it transfers into like what are they doing in a park? Like,
to that, like, communication aspect too, right? So their communication is, they have just as many like ways to communicate, but they're a lot more subtle than the way we would. And so
absolutely.
Learning nosework tunes the human into paying attention to that body language and how they communicate those things.
What is the grossest thing that's happened in your career? This is like the best dog question, dog industry question.
Because it did like so many gross things.
Many gross things. What to choose from?
Right. Number one thing. Technically it's a doggy daycare instead of training, but
it doesn't matter. Okay. It's any dog industry.
Any dog industry. Doggy daycare. We have these things called poop buckets. And at the end of every day, we empty the poop buckets in the dumpster. And so where I was working at the time, they had like Home Depot buckets, but they had bags inside. And so we scoop the poop, we dump it in, we tie the bag off, we put the bag in a wheelbarrow, and then we wheel it out to the dumpster, and we have to throw it over. Well, It had been raining, and so the poop bucket was a little bit soupy. And as I go to throw it from the wheelbarrow up into the dumpster, it breaks and goes all in my face. My mouth didn't close in time. So, and I was probably like 16 or 17, right? So I go into my boss. This is my first like big girl job that wasn't like babysitting or whatever. I go into my boss and I'm like, I have to go home. What happened? I was like, I got poop in my mouth and I have to go home.
Dude, I would die.
It was awful.
It's like an immediate gag response.
Yes. And I couldn't think like how to.
You couldn't think
out.
to do anything.
I literally, I mean, it's a trip back from the dumpster to my boss's office.
Just in a daze, a poop daze. As soon as you get to go home.
I got to go home and change clothes, brush my teeth like 40 times, and then came back, finish the day out. But that's the grossest thing that's ever happened. And I've gotten, anal glands and stuff, but that's the only time it's ever gone in my mouth.
Yeah, in the mouth is, and then it's like, I call it like ghost finger or wherever, like wherever something gross touches you, you feel it for a good 15 to 30 minutes.
So true.
When you get a finger or a hand, like.
Yeah, a phantom limb.
Like phantom poop. Oh, God. Was inspired by Miss Ashton because we worked together for a while, and this is our favorite thing. But and I know this is going to be a very hard question for her. What is your favorite dad joke?
I had a hard time narrowing this down
because she has so many.
But I think I have to go with the classic.
Okay.
What does a nosy pepper do?
I don't know.
Gets jalapeno business.
That's your delivery every time. Before she even delivers it, she gets excited and starts to laugh before she even says it. Every single time. It's from trainer to trainer. Well, what is your ideal client look like?
That's
not necessarily look like. I mean, don't go there.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
My number one thing that I look for in when I can tell, this client is going to be a good client, is open mind. Okay. They don't come in with, I want this, so you're going to teach my dog this, or my least favorite question is, can I just drop it off and pick up a perfect dog? Like, no, that's not how it works. And I feel like both of our training styles are really based on relationship building. So it's not about, can you get your dog to perform X, Y, or Z? Right. It's, can you get your dog to want to work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of what your goal is, you have to build that relationship. So that's the number one thing I look for, is they come in with an open mind and they want to do the work.
Yeah, perfect.
That's an ideal client. And they listen.
Your area, your training, your specialties, what is your most common training request?
I get a lot of, honestly, just puppies. I got, and not even puppies, but I have a new dog, right? I have this new dog, or I'm going to get a new dog. I'm talking with a breeder or whatever, and so
whoa. Consulting a trainer before you get your dog? That's crazy.
Who knew? Yeah.
I love that.
So that's my biggest, I guess, area that is needed, is how do I get this dog to peacefully coexist in my house? I'm in Montgomery now. We don't have a lot of sports, other than hunting, which we have a lot of, but we don't have a lot of agility or nosework or things like that. And I think we're on Montgomery and the surrounding areas are kind of on this brink of this dog friendly wake up, where I think my major goal, especially since moving back to Montgomery and being immersed in that, I'm trying to get it to where
you're trying to convert from what you're used to over there and bring it over there.
And bring dogs into your life, and how do you make that process easier? So and my goal, even as a young kid, every dog that I interacted with was, I wanted to make that dog's life better. And the best way to do that is teach the dog and the human to get along and to have
I think
a good
that's where all dog trainers start.
Yes.
We have little bleeding heart rescues, collecting dogs from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I found this dog. It's got a collar and a tag on it. Oh, my bad. What is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is when my client presents a problem that they're having with their dog, and I give them multiple ways of addressing it, and they immediately, without trying any of them, go, that won't work for me.
I know those.
Yeah.
I've had some of those.
Yeah, that's probably because, if you try it and it's not working, I'll work with you. We'll come up with something.
It's always about like starting with one and then moving, and it's dog training is a creative process.
Right.
We're presented with a typical path that we would go on with a dog, and then you just have to maneuver it for the family, the situation, the home,
The dogs.
the dogs, obviously.
Yeah.
Because, training an apartment dog versus a dog that lives in the house is two completely different things.
Right.
Training city dogs versus people who live in neighborhoods I've experienced a lot of different things.
For
but,
sure.
But yeah.
I think if you become a dog trainer, you don't do it for the money. You do it because you want to help dogs and their people. And if you feel like your time is being wasted or your expertise is not being listened to, like, why hire me if you're not going to listen to what I have to say?
What is your best piece of advice, or the thing you're saying that you say to your clients?
I've found myself lately saying a lot, pay attention to your dog. I feel like a lot of people, when they approach training process, is, what do I want my dog to do? And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but what do I want my dog to do, and how can I get him to do that? When really, I think if you're paying attention to your dog, you're communicating better. You're if you know his or her learning style or what motivates them, not only are you going to have better results, but you're building that relationship.
Yeah.
And
what tools should every dog owner have?
That's a good question too, and I kind of went back and forth. I think the best tool. So I was trying to decide whether to interpret this literally or not. So number one tool would probably be, again, patience and communication.
Okay.
And that's not like a literal tool. A literal tool, I love my leash.
Okay, so what kind of leash?
That
That was really the literal tool, but I like the figurative tool. I'll implement that.
That's my English major coming out. I use a slip lead. I really like the Mountain Dog brand that we kind of were trained on. But just, I think any leash, again, you have to find what works for your dog. So while I would put a slip lead on most of my dogs, I'm not going to put a slip lead on every dog, right? Some dogs it doesn't work. But the reason I said leash is because that tool is multifaceted. It connects your dog to you, literally and figuratively. Your dog has no other choice than to be connected to you. If you use the leash to communicate with your dog instead of control your dog, that's a good thing.
I like that.
It also puts boundaries on your dog.
Yes.
Which are hugely important. So Nick is my husband, and he's also a really good dog trainer. His favorite thing to say is, it's always easier to start from a place of boundaries and have them earn freedom, as it is to start with a bunch of freedom and then have to impose boundaries.
I like that.
Right? So I think a leash is an excellent way to do that.
To implement boundaries, to start with boundaries.
Start with boundaries.
The most famous person that you train, and you don't have to name names, you can just kind of explain who they are, and then she'll tell me after.
So, I haven't done too many famous people, but one stands out in my mind. Part of what I was doing here in Montgomery, part of what my responsibilities were in the training program that I was in, we had sponsored dogs from the Humane Society. So they would come and they would do our training in their doggy daycare, and we would highlight them on all of our social media and this kind of thing. So one local news meteorologist came to meet one of the dogs, and he's very, in Montgomery, Alabama, he's
your meteorologist is like, because they've been there for like 20 years, always.
Yeah, so I was a little bit starstruck when he came to meet this particular dog. Well, this particular dog was a healer mix and has been a stray. Like, one of the reasons we sponsored her was she was in the shelter for like 100 or something days, a really long time. So
healer mix meteorologist.
Yes. And so she'd been in the shelter a long time, and she was a great dog, very friendly, but a little bit timid with like loud noises and things like that. And so this meteorologist comes in there, and before I even I put him in the room, and then I go to get the dog, right? And so I come back, and he is on all fours already, like
The
waiting.
dog's not in there.
The dog's not in there yet. Facing the door, and I bring the dog in. He's on all fours. He's going, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Poor healer just started like backing out.
How did you hold yourself together?
I was like, your body language might be a little bit intimidating.
We're gonna call that body language. You acting like a complete freak.
You're on all fours growling at her as she enters the room.
I feel like you were on like a prank show or something.
I might have been. There might have been hidden cameras. I probably was on WSFA or something.
Oh my gosh.
It was so funny. But yeah, I think your body language is a little bit intimidating.
See, that's how you know we get in these situations and you just have to like real quick figure if you're a good dog trainer and a good like communicator, you have to quickly explain something that's really weird and not okay in a nice way. Like I called someone's dog Quirky today. He was way more than quirky. And they appreciated that I just called him Quirky. What's your favorite dog treat?
Oh my gosh, I just blanked on it. Nubs, N-U-B-Z.
Okay.
Grillers.
Oh.
So
Is it a Z on grillers too? Okay.
Yeah, it is. June and Kona would jump off a cliff for those treats.
Okay, Nubs Grillers. Dream dog item.
I don't even know if I can answer this. There are so many things. Honestly, like if I had to narrow it down, I would want a dog car.
Okay.
You know, like
the Sprinter vans?
Yeah,
like
like
all decked out?
Like a pimped out.
Yeah.
I use this vehicle.
This
is my dog's vehicle.
If you come to the dog show in a couple weeks, you can just like lust over them.
Yeah. I think that would be
if you're a dog trainer and you compete, you know what a dog van looks like.
For sure. Like the stacked crates and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Your like dream like competition title, place to visit, what is like your goal, something that you want to do with your dogs or any dog.
I really as far as competitions go, I'm honestly, I love doing the sport for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really have...
If you're not trying to get to Orlando, but you would go to Orlando for dog diving.
Yeah. If I got there, I'd be thrilled to death and I'd want it. But it's not, if I never get there, it's not going to hurt my feelings.
Okay.
I think I would like to be able to do a little bit more nose work and take my girls further in that just because they love it so much.
Right, yeah.
Dog diving is one of those things that it's fun to go to a competition, but if you have access to a pool, you can have even more fun just going swimming with your dogs.
But you don't get ribbons.
But you don't get ribbons, yeah.
She's not been doing it as long.
Yeah, I'm not addicted yet. Yeah. I'm not addicted.
It's fine. It just makes you poor. You can't be a crackhead because you're just rationing out entry fees and tagging along in someone's car.
And that might be why I'm okay with not winning ribbons, because like that's how I justify it, right? Yeah. I'm saving money.
You are saving money. So tell me something that has nothing about yourself that has nothing to do with dogs.
On the side, or like whenever I'm not training with dogs, I do a lot of like, I would call myself like a maker or a designer. Mm-hmm. So like I do some woodworking, I do some like crafting, graphic design, things like that. So I don't really have like a specific channel.
No, I've seen all of it. Nothing is consistent. Yeah. A replica birdhouse of her dad's lake house.
Yeah.
She made me watercolors with my dogs.
Yeah.
I still have the planter. The plant is very dead. But it was a piece of wood from a place that we worked, and she painted it and made it super cute and modern.
Geometric, yeah. So I would call myself a maker more than anything else, because I just make stuff.
It's fine. What is it?
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Okay, so now we're going to get into the fun part. We are going to, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to show me your favorite skill trick, and then you're going to train me to do something.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah. Okay,
let's do it.
Let's go get dogs.